Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Thursday, March 27th, 2025, and today's topic is going to be called Art and Creativity, and it's going to be part of the series that I call Artist Life that I'm doing for this week. I mean, this might be the last one, but I started it on Monday. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning. Welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day, and I use a timer to stay focused and to build a habit or maintain a habit. I'll start a 10-minute timer, and basically I'm going to keep working on this illustration. I'll link to the other videos in the Artist Life series, mini-series. But basically, you can view it as sort of the progression of an illustration, so that might be helpful. And also, I'm just kind of talking about these topics that goes into making art and stuff. So a part of my mind is kind of focused on adding details to this picture. That's where I'm at right now, is the detail stage. This is an experiment, so you're kind of seeing like the actual experiment. I have some videos that kind of go over it, but part of this is just experimenting with the materials. Yeah, let's talk about art and creativity. So I think creativity kind of came first for me because I sort of apply creativity to a lot of different things, and I didn't think about being an artist or making art or anything like that like when I was little. And so maybe I can talk about like that, like art, because I know it kind of comes up. One, I kind of just sort of let people decide for themselves what it is. I was actually going to call the channel Sketching with Sedone because I like to sketch. So that's kind of the part of the creativity, I guess, and you don't have to really think of sketching as art, but it's like a creative activity. But I think maybe if you look at kind of how I came up with this picture, maybe it'll kind of lend itself to what could be considered art, because it was a creative act. I mean, I wasn't copying anything, and but yeah, if you check out the other videos, you can kind of see that. Which is not to say that it's not art if you don't copy it or whatever. I think, like I said, I think creativity comes first. The urge to want to create something, and in this case, it's a made up, imaginary world. But since I just brought up imagination, that's kind of the other thing too. It's I've always been really imaginative, but imagination can be kind of a passive thing where it's fun for me to just imagine stuff. I don't have to do anything with it, but then I'll get a creative urge, I'll want to draw, for example, or sketch something. Now, when I was little, I didn't really know about sketching, because sketching does serve a certain purpose, and it is kind of a skill and a specific activity, which I like. It takes pressure off of trying to do a finished piece, or it's just helpful for perfectionism, to overcome that, or resistance, as I call it. When I was little, I didn't think, oh, I'm gonna sketch something. In my mind, I was just gonna draw stuff. So I like to draw, meaning using lines to draw stuff. And probably the closest to painting would be coloring books, I guess, is sort of just painting stuff or using colors. I was always one of those kids that, I guess because of the creative aspect of it, I would get bored. And so that was kind of been a lifelong thing, whereas this idea of finishing something was kind of a big deal, I guess, in the adult world. But the thing that gives me joy is like sketching, which it allows me to explore a lot of different ideas. And to me, it's like, that's like the creative part. So for example, when I started this, you could see in one of the videos I'm going to link in like the first video, like from Monday, it was just, it's like a doodle. So I may not have known that I was sketching, but like I knew what doodling was. So I would just do that like in school. So that part's really fun. And then the next part would be kind of like the study part. So what I mean by that is trying to draw like a composition or like a castle or something. I only do as much as I need to when it comes to stuff like that. And that's why I really couldn't be like an architect or something, because I just don't get a lot of joy from just copying something or creating like a blueprint. Since we are talking about art and creativity, I mean, there's a lot of just discussion about that. Like, if you are an architect or even drawing comics, because I was into that, and that's a kind of like, there's a process to that. Then there's like the whole thing of, well, that's not really art. It's really like an industry or something, or like an illustrator or an architect, like that kind of thing. There's just all these sorts of ideas about stuff like that. But I didn't keep a sketchbook for a while. But then like I went to art school and stuff, and like in art class you had like a sketchbook and everything, but like I didn't really get into it until I guess like in high school or something. I started to like just sketch, but I still had that mentality of it had to look good or something. Like I was comparing it to professional work. But there would be times where I started to kind of do this, where I just drew like what I felt like, and that was like really fun. And so I really started to connect with like creativity, and that's kind of what I mean. Like I wasn't trying to do art, I was just being creative. But the thing is, then when I would compare it to like, or if I just looked at it, there would be things that were wrong. And sometimes if people saw the pictures, they would point out something. It may be the anatomy or something like that. And yet I still kept at it. I mean, because it was fun. But then like the older I got, kind of like the less fun it was, because I was becoming more kind of critical. But I still wanted to do it. And this kind of continued for a while, and it would come and go, because in the past I didn't try to have like a habit of keeping a sketchbook. I wasn't like that consistent. It's just sometimes I would go through phases where I would draw a lot. But yeah, I kind of like hit this point, kind of like a plateau kind of thing, where I thought, well, if I want to get better, I want to be more consistent. And then I thought, well, I wonder like what's keeping me from being consistent. And then that's when I started getting into like how to build habits and basically like self-improvement type stuff, because I was wanting to get better at art. And kind of the point of this particular story that I'm talking about is that I did reach a point where like, yeah, I tapped into kind of this imaginary world, which is my imagination. I mean, I've always been imaginative. And then like I was able to draw it, and it was getting better. Like I was getting better at the drawing part. However, it was done kind of like this, like it's sort of sketchy. And some people really liked it, and then some people didn't. And it kind of like affected me. And then also like this may not be that helpful to like video game production or stuff like that, which was kind of the industry that like you needed to get into. And even like with comics, this might not be like what they want. So I kind of had that, like an identity, like art style kind of crisis. And then basically I got into digital art because, one, I mean, like, I enjoy it. I think it's fun. But then at the time, that was sort of like the AI, basically. Like, if you could quickly do pictures, do illustrations and stuff, then you could like find work doing like freelance work. So that was kind of like what happened, like with that. So yeah, this is basically how I'm going to detail it. I'm just kind of doing the, like kind of like the dark and the highlight. That's basically and like small shapes. I can zoom in to this. So it looks pretty different than what I started with. And that kind of goes with the idea of creativity and art and creativity, because to me, I don't know that I would have invented this if I were looking at something. This just kind of came from imagination, plus like having a loose idea, but then coming in and adding more structure to it. And that comes from study. And then the style is like multimedia, mixed media rather, and multimedia, because this is a video. But yeah, I kind of imagine this as being some kind of magic academy that's sort of a castle. And even though it's not that historically correct, since it's magical, like it can defend itself with magic. Hopefully it was helpful to kind of see the progression. I mean, it's at a point right now where I probably would leave it alone, just because sometimes I can't really see like the next steps until I don't look at it for a few days. But yeah, I want to thank you for joining me for our daily sketch routine. And if you enjoy these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep on sketching.